None of the guys, of the 20 guys that we had that came to Immersion, none of them played basketball. And it was the most fun. They had a great time. They got great exercise. They started fighting for rebounds. It was the first time they had physical activity where they were fighting with another person, not in a violent way, but just in a competitive way. They started to understand that men competing with other men is okay. It's good. It gets the blood pumping.
Welcome to Steel Success, interviews with felons of flourishing about how they stole thriving lives from the authorities of conformity, comfort and fear. I'm Rob Farker, your host, and in each chat I'll find out how my guest made the bold moves that most people avoid, so that the rest of us can break out of our comfort zones, grift the rules of polite society, and think a little more criminal. Let's get stuck in. Now, when I was coming up with the idea for this podcast, I whipped up a neat little title for myself. It was flashy, it was alliterative, but I didn't wind up using it. Firstly, I felt like it claimed an authority that I didn't quite have, at least yet anyway. But secondly, if there is anyone that deserves the title of Lex Luthor of life larceny, surely it must be my guest today. Michael Sartain has spent years operating in rooms that people never get invited to, well, most of us anyway. Building networks, hosting events, and creating a lifestyle that is not only fantastic, but looks kind of effortless from the outside. But it is anything but an accident. Michael has been working hard on building this incredible life for himself, and not only has he learned a lot, but he is making sure to teach it as well. Michael's Men of Action program started in the US, but its customer base has broadened internationally, including, I will admit for purposes of disclosure, your humble host. In it, Michael and his team have been coaching their students and giving them in-depth coursework on networking techniques, the principles of status, social media strategy, confidence, and personal leadership. In this episode, we'll talk a little bit with Michael about how he built his thriving life, what most people get wrong when they try it themselves, and how you can start making your own moves. Michael Sartain, welcome to the Steel Success Podcast.
Hey, Rob. Good to see you, brother.
So, when did you first realize that the rules in life were vastly different to what everyone thought or would claim that they were?
Oh, man, I know a lot of people do interviews like this and they give generic answers. I don't have a generic answer. I remember exactly when it was. It was 2001. I was working at a strip club called Expose on Congress Avenue. It's called Red Rose now in Austin, Texas. And I was the daytime DJ. I would go in the back and I would talk to the women that were back there and be like, hey guys, we got to get ready, we got to start doing dances, 11 a.m., whatever. We'd start with the day shift. There was one young lady who would come in there. Her name was Cassidy. I'll never forget. She's very pretty. She came in one day and she had a black eye. And everyone, all the other girls around the dressing room were like trying to help her, trying to put concealer on it. They're trying to help her with the black eye or whatever. And I had never, my parents loved each other very much. I had never witnessed anything even approaching domestic violence. So I wasn't aware of this. And so I watched it as a 22-year-old and I was like, wow, that's terrible that this guy hit her. And then she said, they were all like, you need to leave him. He's a terrible person. Get rid of him, etc. And then time went by and then she comes back later, a month later, and she's got another black eye. And I just remember thinking to myself, I almost said it out loud. I was like, he only hits you because he loves you. Obviously, that's not true, but that must have been what she was thinking. And I was just like, something in the world is broken. Meaning, I'm not being taught about this, about the women who stay with these dudes. That's the first thing. The second thing was, at the strip club, there would be a bunch of girls, and they'd all be fighting over, the same four guys, all of them. And it would be, these guys weren't worth a fuck. They weren't worth a shit. These guys were worthless dudes. And I would see, all these girls fighting over, the same four guys. And I was like, I don't remember the church teaching me this. I don't remember my mom teaching me this. I don't remember the guys back in high school teaching me. I don't remember this. There's something broken here. Now, I know a lot of people are going to respond and be like, yeah, Michael, the world's on a strip club. I totally agree. But this was the moment where I started to see some extreme examples to where people, and not just women, but mostly women, would say one thing and then do another thing. They would say that they really didn't like a guy. This was probably the ultimate moment for this was there was a girl named Joy who I had the biggest crush on. She worked night shift, I worked day shift. She would come in early and she would sit and talk with me because she really liked me, or at least I thought she did. She would come hang out with me. She'd sit in the DJ booth. And this girl was if like Jenna Jameson and Pamela Anderson had a child with Margot Robbie. Like that, this girl was the most perfect, blue-eyed, blonde-hair, beautiful woman. She's so gorgeous. And I remember she would sit on my lap, and she'd put her shoes on before her shift, and she would say stuff like, "Yo, this other DJ, not me, but there was another daytime DJ. She's like, I can't stand that guy. He's an asshole. He's such an asshole. I can't stand him. He's not nice like you, Michael." I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." And then she was living with her husband and her kid. And then, she goes away for a couple months, and I don't hear from her at all. And then she shows up one day, and she comes back into the DJ booth, and I was like, "Hey, how you been?" She goes, "Well, I left my husband." And I was like, "Oh my God, she left her husband. This is it, Rob. This was my shot. She's going to know that I love her and I want to be with her forever." And she goes, "I just moved in with Ryan." And I'm like, "Which Ryan?" She said, "The other DJ Ryan." And the one you told me was a fucking asshole and that you hated, you live with him now? And I was like, and it was just this moment where like no one prepares you for this. No one prepares you for these moments where you're being taught this one thing, and because of especially if you're a young, easily influenced man, this incredible power that the female form and female beauty has on you. It causes you to react in ways that are so irrational and so counter to your own well-being. And you do so because you just want a beautiful woman in your life. You want it so badly that you're willing to like listen to what she says and then take everything she says at face value. That's where the problems start to happen. When you do that over and over again, you start to realize, hey man, all the things that Disney, the church, and my mom told me, maybe it's not that they were deliberately wrong. It's just they're just part of the truth and a very, very small part of the truth. And the actual full truth is nasty. It's dirty. It's ugly. It's grimy. It makes us look like hairless murder apes. And so people don't want to describe that more dark triad version of the truth where men, get manipulated by women. You see this right now. Like I'm watching a video right now of Tony Gonzalez, who has a kid with Lauren Sanchez, who's Jeff Bezos' current wife. And Jeff Bezos took Tony Gonzalez on vacation with them on a yacht. And I'm watching this and I'm like, oh yeah, okay. The people who listen to the mainstream media, this is they're Travis Hunter and Logan Paul and all these other people. This is what you're being taught. You're being taught, yeah, as women level up with their autonomy and agency and able to make more money, which is great. As they do so, you as a man need to be more tolerant of dating single mothers. You need to be more tolerant of the ex-husband coming back into the picture, and maybe you need to be more tolerant of her fooling around or flirting with other guys. You need to be more tolerant of soft swinging, like what we saw in this Taylor Frankie Paul situation with the most recent Bachelorette. You need to be more comfortable with maybe she screws up every once in a while and makes out with her ex, or her ex still calls her. You need to be comfortable with this. That's what they're telling you. And then if you actually observe actual real nature, you're like, hey, man, that's probably not a good idea. For either side, by the way, I don't think it's a good idea if you're a woman to have your boyfriend, in constant communication with his ex as well. Unless it's like a matter of life or death, they probably shouldn't be communicating. And so the thing is, there's what the world tells you, and then there's what reality is. And reality only comes from dispassionately observing others and having no feelings or emotions by it, just actually looking at the raw data in these different situations. And when you do so, you come to some extremely, extremely uncomfortable conclusions. And one of the first things you have to do when you come to these conclusions is not be jaded by them, not become cynical, and not start blaming people for what's going on. The reality of the situation is women do not sleep with men because of their intent. They sleep with men who have high status. And men are attracted to women initially because of their physical appearance. That is the truth. I'm not saying you can't learn to love a woman for a different reason down the line, but the first step is she needs to be physically attracted to you. And the same thing with women. They'll sit there and tell you about star signs and good vibe and good energy, and he made me feel safe and he made me laugh. And then you just watch who they date, and then you start seeing guys who either have dark triad traits or either tall and good looking, super rich, super charismatic, or super funny, and the things that they are attracted to are not the things they're describing they're attracted to. They tell you they like a guy who reads. Any guy who's been dating for the last 20 years knows full fucking well that women are not attracted to men because they read. We know this is not the case. Even though when you survey women, they say that's the most attractive hobby. So it's just one of these situations where it's like there's the signal and the noise. And I just made a video about this. It just came out where we go over two guys. One guy's named Chris and the other guy is named David. By the way, Chris is for Chris GQ Perry and David is for David Buss. Just a little secret if you guys didn't know. That's how I named them. So the thing is, Chris just keeps listening to the bad advice. Here's the other issue, Rob, is that the good advice is being ratioed. The good advice is being canceled. The good advice is being demonetized. The good advice is being deplatformed. The bad advice is, hey, let's have Taylor Frankie Paul, who was on a reality TV show, and her occupation is a TikToker where she talks about parenting. And she also has an assault charge conviction in 2023, and she cheated on her husband. Let's have her be the bachelorette, because that is the bastion, that is the standard by which women only need to meet in order to get a man. These standards. But if you're a man, you know what your standard is? NFL, look at the bachelors. NFL quarterback, race car driver, ER doctor, naval officer, Italian prince. That's what the guy who's the heir to the Firestone fortune. That's what you get for the bachelor. It's these high standards, extremely good looking. But for the bachelorette, it's a 31-year-old single mother of 3 who's kind of mid and cheated on her husband. And so that's, again, it's unveiling yourself and being aware of like what's going on around you. No, I'm not blaming anyone, by the way. If I'm Taylor Frankie Paul, I'm taking the bachelorette position in 2 seconds. Are you kidding? She got paid several $100,000 to do that thing, even though the show was canceled. Good on her. She did a good job. Now, she shouldn't be throwing a chair in front of her fucking kids, but good for her. Whatever. Do whatever you want. ABC, you are what you are. It's like asking the scorpion why it bit the frog. ABC is a liberal, woke organization. Of course they're going to put some horse shit out like this. That doesn't make I don't have an issue with it. And by the way, just so we're clear, on shows like True Blood or shows like Twilight, if you notice, all the male leads in those shows are great, like unrealistically good-looking, beautiful men. And the women are go look at Bella from Twilight. Go look at Sookie Stackhouse from True Blood. Look how mid and average these women look. They want average-looking women competing for extremely good-looking men because the majority of their audience is female. And so because of that, to not intimidate their audience, they get very plain, average-looking women to be on the show. So again, the standard for men is the standard for men is you need to be an NFL quarterback. The standard for a woman is you need to be, a TikToker who cheated on her husband.
It does seem like a bit of a struggle right at the moment. And I am still curious about, you talked about that big moment of yours back in 2001. How did you get, because I think you started Men of Action in, what would it have been, the early 2010s?
December of 19. No, I started coaching in 08, but there was no Men of Action until December of 09, or December of 2019. December of 2019.
Okay. Well, at the very least, take me through a little bit from that realization that you had to 2009. You have been through a lot. The Twin Towers came down, you joined the Air Force, had your career there. How did you, especially, I guess, after you got out of the Air Force, or even while you were doing it, start building up your own personal status and then realizing how you can pass that information on to other people?
So 2 different things. There's the coaching program, and then there was what going on in my personal life. What was going on in my personal life is I worked in nightlife, at a gentleman's club from 2000 to 2004. While I was in the military from 04 to 11, I would still work as like a part-time MC at certain nightclubs like in Dallas or San Antonio. And then when I got out, I was in Dallas for most of the summer for when the Mavericks won the championship, and then I moved to Las Vegas and Los Angeles at the same time in August of 2011. Around 2012, I start working with a company where we start throwing events. And this is where I start to notice at these events, I have access. There's more women than men. I can invite other guys here. These are great ways to connect. The music's not so loud. There isn't such a status hierarchy that I can't break through if I just throw my own events. And then me being on the microphone was also really helpful, me being a good public speaker. And then the other thing, a lesson that I learned all the way back in the early 2000s was female friends introduce you to even more females. That was another trick. So putting all those together and then hosting bikini competition. We had a nightlife awards show back in the day in Las Vegas, hosting all these different events in Las Vegas where there were way more women than men. Consistently, what I found was I was dating women, at least from a physical attractiveness standpoint, were way, way, way out of my league. Whereas I was like the women that I was dating back in Texas and Kansas and Georgia would be like a 4 or 5 or a 6 compared to the women that I was dating when I was in Las Vegas. They were just so outrageously physically attractive. I'm not saying they were all good people, but I am saying that they were really, really physically attractive. Now, later on, once I kind of came to the realization, and several of my clients did, and several of my friends who did really well with women is that, hey, if we can create a scenario where there's multiple women in our lives that are competing with us, competing with each other for our attention, we can generate attraction without hitting on these women. And that's when I started noticing the ultimate embodiment of this. There's a few guys. I mean, there's a guy named Kurt Benz, another guy named Sam Rima that you guys have never heard of. The one that everyone has heard of is Dan Bilzerian. Obviously, he did this, and so did Hugh Hefner. It's a situation where it's like and it's hard for guys to understand because until you've been in the situation, you're never going to grasp it. If you're at a situation where there's 20 girls and 4 guys, you really don't have to do any game. The girls become attracted because there's so much pre-selection, there's so much social proof, and there's so much social pressure. Again, most of you are not going to, you're going to take my words for granted and you're going to think that what I'm saying isn't true. If you don't believe me, go to moamentoring.com/testimonials and you can see physical evidence, irrefutable visual proof of what I'm saying to be true. And so what we decided to do in the program, amongst several other things, is we decided what is a way for men, without being toxic, without being assholes, without being manipulative, and without lying, what is a way for us to generate attraction with the most beautiful women and have the most options with women? And what we figured it out was it was relevancy, competency, humor, charisma, pre-selection, and social proof. Access to scarce locations, networks, and resources. Those were the things that we figured out. And then we figured out that social media was the best way for us to broadcast that passively so that multiple women, hundreds of thousands of women, millions of women could see it. And so we put all that together in a program. Meanwhile, other dating coaches were like, go on dating apps, go up and talk to strangers. Pickup artists were like, go up and show a bunch of intent. We completely shifted. We did a 180-degree shift. And what happened was, because I started the program in December of 2019, the pandemic hadn't happened. The pandemic actually made what I taught more relevant. Let me see if I can explain that again. I had an idea, and my idea was cold approach was going to become more difficult because of social media. When the pandemic happened, it kind of sucked a significant portion of attractive women out of in real life dating, meaning they're not going to bars and nightclubs anymore. When that happened, my program actually became more relevant because you need an incredible offer. You need females to introduce you to more females. You need to learn how to use social media to create a funnel and to generate attraction while you sleep. And you need to understand evolutionary attraction triggers that you can show on social media. And so from doing that, what I found was that my clients kept getting more and more positive responses. I get more positive reviews. You can go on Trustpilot and read our reviews there if you want. We got a 4.9 rating. Remember, we did not compensate anyone for those reviews, and anyone who took the course can make a review. There are no negative reviews on there because the clients are incredibly satisfied by what we teach because it's based in evolution. So that's essentially what happened is we built the program based on previous evidence. And then there was the other part, which was it was concerning to me how incredibly focused some of these men were on just getting a hot girl. And so when you join the program, one of the things you find is that I sell you what you want, but I teach you what you need. When you come into the program, most of the guys come into the program because they're trying to date an amazing woman that they're super attracted to. Once they get into the program, they see the leadership section, they see the entrepreneurship section, the critical thinking section, the evolutionary psychology section, the event planning section, and the winning mindset section of the course, because the course is actually more of a mindset U.S. military officer course with a little bit of dating in it, but people come into the course because of dating. And once they get their mindset correct and get all these other parts of their life in order, then attracting women becomes easier.
I will stick my hand up for that. When your ad popped up on Facebook of all places, I was kind of getting into a little bit of that, getting back into the apps situation, and then seeing around, I thought, all right, let's just try something a little bit different, see if it works. And then when I started looking at your course material, I was going, hang on, I feel like through creating an Instagram and especially when you talked about funnels, I immediately clicked back to conversations that I've seen about sales funnels. I thought this is basically a marketing course in disguise. You sneaky person, you.
Rob, let me ask you a question. And for anybody out there who's so guys who work in sales, they tend to join my course very quickly because this is going to make a lot of sense to them. If all of a sudden I sell a course and my course is about becoming an entrepreneur, and this specific course is for people who are retired military. If I sell this course and I find that people in like large military states like Georgia, Texas, whatever, if I start to find out that people in those states are more receptive to my course, am I going to spend more money on advertising in those states or less money? What am I going to do?
You would spend more money in advertising. You would spend more, of course.
So once I recognize a very strong lead source, I'm going to double down on that lead source. For those of you who don't understand marketing, trust me on this. You can look it up for yourself. This is your marketing 101 section, okay? So now, if I go to 1,000 beautiful women, I'm talking about slim, like hot enough to be bikini champions, under 28, no tattoos, no OnlyFans, no, like a small social media presence, very young, very inexperienced. If I were to go to all those women, and I was asked 1,000 of those women, remember, I've hosted 68 pageants at this point and the 4 biggest bikini competitions in Las Vegas. If I go to 1,000 women and I keep asking, how'd you meet the last 5 guys you dated? And the answer is never dating apps, and it is never cold approach. The answer is always a woman introduced them. If hot women are telling you that women are introducing them to the guys they're dating, why aren't you friends with more hot women? I know some of you guys are resisting it, but when I use the example of meta ads, in different locations, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that's a lead source. We should double down on the lead source. But I'm explaining to you that attractive women are all reporting to me that it's usually a girl, sometimes a guy is introducing them to the guy that they end up dating. Why are you not part of that whole thing? Instead, you're still living in 2015 doing dating apps.
To kind of take things back a little bit to you building your life out, and blokes tend to talk themselves out of stuff a lot, I find. You know, there's a lot of negative stuff going on in their brains. Yeah. This can't work, this won't be for me. So what was an opportunity that you took for yourself, a door that you knocked on that you expected wouldn't open for you, and then it opened and you were let right in?
Yeah, when I started the podcast, and it really wasn't that big. I mean, you know, it's just like, it wasn't even like 1 million views a month. It was not very big. And I'd done like 100 episodes. What I expected was for that most people who are much bigger content creators than me to not even know who I was. And when I started going to these conferences and saw that every single one of them knew who I was like, wait, something's wrong here. Something's different. Then I started looking at Google search trends, and there were these content creators that had just popped up on the scene, and they had 1 million followers on Instagram, and they had all these like tens of thousands of views on YouTube. And I was like, yo, these guys have just really passed me by. And then what happened was I started going to sales conferences, and I would talk to guys from these other company sales teams, and they were doing 20% in revenue what we were doing. And then I went and looked on Google search trends, and I found that my name was getting searched more than theirs. So what I thought was, honestly, I was a middle of the road content creator, because my content is very, very, very much hated by TikTok. It's somewhat hated by Instagram, and it's not really hated by YouTube, but it's very, very much hated by TikTok. Twitter doesn't care at all. And so for my content, I really thought that it was like, hey man, I'm just dragging behind because I'm not a good content creator. And then I come to find out, that the more my content, the amount of views grows, I get about 8 million views a month on Instagram. The more it grew, whenever I would go out, I would get more and more recognized. And it was very strange to me because I really didn't see that happening. I really saw this as being a hyper niche market. But the things that I said were so pervasive. And if you come on our calls, and you've seen this, Rob, there's white guy next to a black guy, next to an Asian guy, next to a Hispanic guy. Like the diversity, the ethnic diversity on our calls, I didn't plan that. That happened. The ethnic diversity, religious diversity, national diversity that is on our calls happened because this is a problem that I'm trying to fix for all men. This isn't just white men, African men, European men. It was all men are going through this. Social media is a pervasive thing that is causing women's standards to change along with the upward mobility financially. It's causing their standards to change. And because it's causing their standards to change, men need a new strategy, or men need a new understanding operationally of what it is that they're supposed to do. And you can't go to women for help for this because they're not going to help you. They don't care that ugly men are not dating anyone. They do not give a shit. And so that's the reason why no one there on that side is going to teach you to get it. Like, you're just supposed to get it. And when you don't get it, then she breaks up with you. And my job is to teach you to get it because she's not going to teach you.
It really does feel like so much of what people, and including men, need to know nowadays just to be able to have any semblance of thriving, let alone keeping up, is just not taught in most places, especially schools. It seems insane.
Well, no, you wouldn't teach this. You wouldn't teach this in school. But the problem is when you teach the opposite. It's problem like when in the UK there's like classes that you're going to give boys on like whether or not they're being respectful towards girls, and it's just like the things that they're pointing out are not even about being respectful towards girls. It's about being woke and progressive. It's not actually about protecting women. If you wanted to protect women, you wouldn't have such a massive rise in knife crime. I'm about to get you in trouble. I don't know if you want to post this in the UK, but you have this massive rise in knife crime in the UK because of immigration, and then because of that, there's been more stabbings. But instead, you make a show called Adolescence, which is a propaganda trying to make it out that a middle-class white kid actually stabbed his classmate because he watched red pill content. That never happened. That is not, there's no example in the UK of that even happening one time. But yet they're using that propaganda as evidence in Parliament. That's a serious, serious problem that's going on. And what it's doing is it's causing men to not, you're saying all of, like, here's the thing. If you don't want to listen to HS Tiki Taki, or you think, Myron Gaines or Andrew Tate are too offensive, I totally understand. Don't watch that stuff. I get it. I totally understand where you're coming from, okay? I get it. But if you think all people in the manosphere are only giving bad advice, then you're not going to be capable of ever being successful with a woman. The vast majority of it is good advice. In fact, it's so good that if I were to sit there and take people who are not proponents of the manosphere, like a Chris Williamson or someone like that, and I were to go down issue by issue, what you would find is that Chris Williamson and the manosphere tend to agree on 80 to 90% of the issues. It's this 10% that they disagree on, and they disagree on because these concepts come off as extremely offensive, like, the egalitarian nature of feminism versus the innate sex differences between men and women. And so those things are very difficult to discuss, especially, boy, if you get into race, it gets really ugly. And so that's the reason why a lot of these differences happen. But if you just, what I'm saying is you throw the baby out with the bathwater, meaning you watched Inside the Manosphere documentary by Louis Theroux, and you just thought all of it was true and that everyone in the manosphere acts just like that. And therefore, any manosphere content that tells you to have boundaries, get a prenup when you get married to someone, that tells you to continue to maintain your physical fitness even when you get married. If you think all of that advice is bad, you will never, ever be good with women. There's no way to do it. You're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. I agree that there is some toxic advice in the manosphere, but what I'm telling you is that most of it isn't. Most of it is just correct.
Mm. It's always the inflammatory stuff that gets the most attention and the most clicks, of course.
Well, it has to. That's the only way he can make a point.
Exactly.
If he interviewed me, and I got him to interview some of my clients who thought about taking their own lives and stopped it because of what I taught them, what's going to happen to his documentary? Nothing. He's not going to be able to post it. He actually, Logan Duong, I think that's how you say his name. Logan, he interviewed him in Los Angeles. He's a Marine who actually teaches some dating course stuff. And because Logan didn't say anything inflammatory, they didn't use any of the footage in the documentary. If it had been me and Rolo, we'd been like, hey, I actually love women. I'm in a happy relationship, and I have a bunch of women who come on my show, and I'm really, really nice to them, and they're all friends of mine. And I throw charity events with women, and we raise money for charity. He would just be like, cut, let's get out of here. Pack it up, let's get out of here. We can't bash the manosphere because of Michael Sartain. Fuck this. Let's get out. That's what would have happened. He wouldn't have been able to do it because the thing is, the vast majority of the manosphere are rational individuals who have rational beliefs, who think that it's like they don't hate gay people or hate whatever. There's no hatred, or they don't hate women, but they do think it's a little bit strange that that my 12-year-old child is being taught stuff about the trans community when he's 12. Like this is what the manosphere is. It's just like, this is a little bit strange. This is something we can legitimately have a discussion about without spewing hatred. And because I want to have this discussion, like, no, manosphere, HS Tiki Taki's in the manosphere. Therefore, you're a misogynist just like him. Like, it's very much a straw man argument against what's really just rational common sense. The DNC, the Democratic National Committee here in the United States, during the Harris-Trump campaigns, Kamala Harris literally had Jennifer Lopez and Cardi B on stage, like, performing. Well, Jennifer Lopez made a movie, I think she produced a movie, about strippers robbing men, and then Cardi B was actually a stripper who robbed men. Like, this is what you're endorsing this behavior. You've completely forgotten about men. Being in the manosphere and just being like, hey, I don't want to vote for the Harris campaign because they clearly don't seem to care about men at all. That's not misogynistic or sexist. That's just the truth. Their viewpoint of men of being super, super just submissive and just incredibly vulnerable and emotional. Like, I know better. I can read books on evolution. I'm very aware that mankind, like, all of society would collapse if all men just became emotional. Like, that is not the way the world works. But they don't understand that. And so I can just tell by looking at first principles when it comes to evolution which one of these two sides is correct. And that's why, just having these discussions, you can have these discussions without being a misogynist, without being a sexist. You can have normal, scientifically based discussions using peer-reviewed data. But as soon as you do, someone like the reason why someone like me is never going to end up on Chris Williamson is not because I'm going to say something irrational, crazy, or I'm going to say something that's controversial. I'm not going to end up on Chris Williamson because I'm going to provide at least 40 peer-reviewed data sets. at least 40, and I'm going to have my friends who are in the evolutionary psychology community review every single one of these data sets, and then I'm going to use them to prove my point. I'm not going to be he's not going to not have me on the show because he thinks that my following isn't big enough or because the shit I'm going to say is too controversial. He's going to not have me on the show because what I'm going to say is going to make too much goddamn sense, and he's not going to be able to counter it. That's the problem. And he's going to be like, I can't. And he's probably going to agree with what I'm saying. And it's like, now Chris Williamson's in the manosphere. Uh-oh, what is he going to do? So like that's the issue. He doesn't want to do that. By the way, just not that he'd ever be watching this, but Chris Williamson, you are in the manosphere, and you are sitting right next to Richard Reeves and Scott Galloway. You are in the manosphere. Anyone who talks about male self-improvement is in the manosphere. Doesn't mean you're red pill, but it does mean you're in the manosphere. And so I'm just going to let you know, you talking about male self-improvement does put you in this place.
I mean, it does seem like, and I will just say very quickly, I'm glad that if nothing else, I managed to get Michael Sartain before Chris Williamson did on my show. So, It does seem as though there has to be an element of, I guess, you talk a lot about status, but I keep thinking, especially in some of the stuff you've just mentioned, there has to be a little bit of local celebrity. You do have to be willing to get out and be something of a personality. Fixing yourself and getting to know people isn't something that you can just do from the comfort of your own home.
Yeah. So local celebrity. So basically, what I discovered from my 26 years of experiments here is that there's a level. So this used to not exist. So it used to be like, say, in the 1980s, you were as famous as like Tom Cruise, or you were as famous as Arnold Schwarzenegger, or you were as famous as Ronald Reagan, or you were like a school teacher who had no fame whatsoever because there was no social media. There was no mid-tier level of fame. You could say maybe the mayor in your city was like a mid-tier level of fame, but for the most part, there wasn't a mid-tier level of fame. You were either like on the cover of Vogue or you were like a nobody. And when social media came out, there was all these mid-tier, like sort of nuanced levels of fame, whereas like, is Aiden Ross famous? He's super famous. Is Aiden Ross more famous than Donald Trump? No. Is, Patrick Bet-David is really, really famous. Is Patrick Bet-David as famous as The Rock? No. So it's like there's now these different levels of fame where you're like a streamer and you could be like a mid-tier level of fame. Well, now there's another level of fame where it's like you're a restaurant owner in a local area and your restaurant, you post about it on social media. Now you're a low-tier level of fame. You're still high status, but you're like a lower-tier level of fame. And what I'm asking, guys, is on a scale of 1 to 10, I just want you to become a fame of a 1. What I mean by that is I just want every attractive woman in the city to at least see your face on social media. There's very simple ways to accomplish this. I want you to be in a situation where there's big events that everyone in the city knows about, and you're involved with hosting the event, inviting people to the event, promoting the event, or it's your event, in total. I just want you to have this small, at a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being like The Rock and Cristiano Ronaldo. I just want you to be a 0.5 or a 1. I want you to be down here, just a 1 level of fame. And if you do so, it trumps any dating app. It trumps any kind of cold approach. You will have more women to date than you'll ever have to understand. And the reason why is because so few men understand this. So few men understand how to use social media. And so few men understand how to project status in any way whatsoever that like you really don't have any competition. Even if you just get a little bit of status, even if you're just like the second biggest personal injury attorney in your city, you're like literally going to have women trying to date you 7 days a week. It's one of the craziest things. Because I'm a great example. Like I'm not that famous. Like all the GMs of the nightclubs here know me, and pretty much every attractive woman in the city has seen my face because of my social media, but I'm like a 2. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'm like a 1.5, a 2. But I get invited to everything. And so that's the thing. Like when people are like putting up together a list of who they want to invite to a popular event, I'm one of the first people who gets invited because I'm consistently posting quality content and people are consistently seeing my social proof and pre-selection on social media. It's not very difficult to do. It's not very time consuming, 2 to 3 hours a week at most. You could definitely make this work. And so that's what I try to train guys on doing is this very nuanced, low to mid-tier level of fame.
One thing that you said at the end of February in one of the chats that I was in, I believe it was play the game even if you don't believe in it. And with what you were just saying, I found myself thinking a little bit about social media. There is, I won't say it's necessarily a lot of fear, but I think in a few people's minds, people I've talked with, they tend to talk about these big platforms and they worry about feeding the machine. That in trying to get fame, you're almost giving up a lot of your data into these platforms. So people tend to be a little bit hands off. Look, I don't want to get on the apps. I don't want to get on Instagram, all that kind of thing. Where is the compromise there?
Yeah, it's irrational. Like, they already have your data. I think it's silly to think that they don't already have your data if they want it. Number one. Number two, what you show on social media, like, I would rather. One of the cool things about, like, the podcasting era, like kind of starting with Joe Rogan, is that because Joe Rogan would do 3-hour podcasts, it was very, very difficult to take him out of context. Meaning, like, you could sit there and take a clip and try to take him out of context, but the full version of that video still existed on the internet, and someone could put him in context. So the people deliberately trying to take him out of context would look foolish. And so because of that, you started to see a lot of people being able to protect themselves by being able to do that. So my whole question to you is, if you're like, I don't want to be on social media, trust me, man, like, I'm happy that I have a platform if somebody were to attack me that I can defend myself. And that's one. I'll tell you a really interesting story. It's way off topic. When Neil Strauss wrote the book, The Game, one of the things he did was, when he wrote it, he wrote the antagonist to be Owen Cook, R.C. Tyler. He wrote Tyler Durden. He wrote him in as the antagonist. And he exaggerated a lot. There's a lot of stuff that's in that book that Neil Strauss wrote that did not actually happen. He amalgamated several things and meshed a lot of things together. I've talked to several people who lived in that house. It was not the way that he portrayed it to be. To some extent, but for the most part, it wasn't. And when he did so, one of the reasons why he punched down on Tyler is because he didn't expect Tyler, Owen Cook, to ever have a voice to be able to defend himself. Because back then, when that book came out, there wasn't even MySpace back then. 03, there was no MySpace. So it's like, when that book came out, there was no way for Tyler Durden or Owen Cook to defend himself. And so in that, he's a Neil Strauss is a New York Times bestselling writer. He can write the book, and he's protected from the backlash because Owen can't really say anything. He doesn't have a public figure. Now, 09, YouTube comes out, and now Owen right now is more relevant. If you want to look on Google search terms, you can. Owen Cook is more relevant than Neil Strauss is. Neil Strauss has not had a best-selling book in a while, and Owen Cook is, he's all over the internet, and he's been all over the internet for a long time. And one of the things Owen told me that I've never forgotten is, he said, I don't think that when Neil wrote that book that he ever expected me to have a voice to where I could defend myself. And that's part of the reason why Neil just sort of like went underground, because he knew that what some of the stuff he said was disingenuous. And so it's the same type of situation here. There's I think the London Times wrote an article about me completely made up, like almost no, they had every opportunity to ask me for comment. They didn't, because they knew what they were saying was not true. And so it's one of these situations where it didn't hurt me at all. Why? Because I have the context with which to defend myself. I would highly recommend everyone else do this. Like, I'll be honest with you, dude. If I was charged with a crime that I wasn't guilty of, I would make a long, thorough video, post it on YouTube. I understand that my attorney would not approve it and be very upset, but I have the ability to put myself in context now as to where it was before I didn't. So you're like, oh, I don't want to go on social media because they have all my information. Bro, they have already got your information. Like, the idea that you think that you have some kind of privacy from the government, it's just madness to me. They already have your information. You can pay someone $19 a month and they can do deep dives on your research. Artificial intelligence is going to crack all of your information. They're going to have services where they can search anything they want about you. This idea that you're paranoid about social media, well, guess what? You're not going to be rich, and you're not going to date a beautiful woman, because social media is the key to getting a ton of that into your life. Social media right now is one of the keys to creating a money funnel and a dating funnel in your life, inarguably.
It does seem like no matter what you do, you have to accept that you might not have 100% control, and I guess it's like, accepting the dark side in everything, pretty much.
Yes.
You just have to say it's there and progress as best you can. Now, you did just talk about Owen Cook a fair bit, and whom I know you and he are great mates. And one of the things I really do want to talk about, especially when you are building a thriving life, and you talk a lot about, you say female friends, and then you say actually female teammates, just because female friends tends to...
Makes people so... The female friends thing makes guys so angry. I'm like, dude, why are you so feminine that you're... Oh my God. Yeah. So I have female friends. I say the word female teammates because it makes guys so angry when I say that I have female friends. And my female friends get me invited to the biggest parties. They tell me where the biggest parties are. Whenever the hottest girls are out, my female friends text me and be like, yo, so-and-so is here. The hottest girls I've ever dated were because of my female friends. My female friends help me with my charity events. They help me with my animal rescue stuff. I have female friends that come on my show. They help me make money because they come on my Access Vegas program, all kinds of stuff. And then these women recruit even more women because they feel super comfortable around me. For some of you guys out there who have any success with women, you know what I'm saying is true and it makes sense. For those of you who don't, who've been friend zoned by a girl, or a girl like fucking pretended that she liked you and was actually just wasting your time, you're like, no, you can't be friends with women. No, bro, you were hurt by a woman because you showed intent to a woman who gave you no compliance and she put you in the friend zone. I'm not telling you as a man to get put in the friend zone. I'm telling you as a man to put women in the friend zone. For you to act as if beauty is common to you and that it takes more than a woman being beautiful to impress you. So you put all these women in the friend zone because you're dating too many women and you just don't even have time to hit on them. That's the attitude I want you to bring. And it works every time. Go check my testimonials if you don't believe it. And so that's the main thing. It's not really arguable, but it doesn't come off as like the big old tough man red pill idea. Men and women can't be friends. Women are useless. Blah blah. It doesn't agree with that narrative, and so people don't like to hear it. And so I don't really care. At first, I was championing this cause, and now I don't care. What I want is for my clients to be successful. If you're not in MOA, I don't know what you're doing anyway. So it's like, go ahead and have fun, saying that men and women shouldn't be friends, and then my clients will just steal your girlfriend. Like, I don't care. Like, do whatever you want. I've just gotten to the point where I can't turn the Titanic, but I can create a lifeboat for some of us to get off, and that's what I'm trying to do.
I get the feeling that everyone needs some sort of, at the very least, a personal support network. I mean, through MOA, it's starting to be the guys who I'm meeting through there, and how as we start learning all of these skills that we've never had before, how just at least being in each other's company and having those common stories of going through the coursework. And Men of Action in and of itself, for you, the whole program is not just you doing the coursework. It's guys. God, I feel like I'm answering my own question here. Guys like Casey, Ashkan, Karim, and all the people who are more broadly just in your life and helping Michael Sartain being the most awesome Michael Sartain he knows how to be. Who are those people, and how do you maintain those connections?
Yeah, those guys are a great team. And then, so what we talked about was my social life and then the business. For the business, I definitely have to have an incredible team around me, people to tell me when I'm screwing up. I give my employees, not employees, but my team members, I give them autonomy. I give them authority to be able to do things. I do check up on them, but I put people in positions to succeed, and then I let them work. I stay out of the way. So that's basically the main thing there. But what I think is we were able to recruit really good people because people believed in what I was teaching, because they kept going out and they kept seeing, like, either I was introducing them to their favorite celebrity. A lot of my clients, I would introduce them to the girl of their dreams. Several of them would end up getting married, or in situations where they would say, like, I look like just an average looking dude, but I was dating girls who they would consider to be perfect 10s. That was one of the situations where I was like a guy weighing 123 pounds fighting super heavyweights. I was punching so high out of my weight that a lot of the guys were like, okay, I need to figure out what Michael's doing and then join that course. And so because of that, we were able to recruit the best of the best guys who really believe in the program. When it comes to Immersion, when it comes to the main Men of Action program, the Mastery program, the Alumni program, and all the other additional programs. We have a new brand building program we just came out with that Casey Herzog is teaching, and then Immersion is obviously run by Ashkan Beheshti. And so we just have all these different programs for the guys to participate in. Last night was graduation. For our first Immersion of the year. Several guys came up to me and they just kept thanking me over and over again. And I was just like, yo, man, you just went through hell. Because Immersion week for us is really rough. You just went through hell and you're over here thanking me. I appreciate it, man. It was really great. And a lot of guys come back, for several different immersions. Immersion, by the way, is a week-long boot camp that you do with me here in Las Vegas. We do 8 immersions a year. And so these guys would come back and they'd be like, yo, man, I had the greatest time ever. And then they show me afterwards. We do some post reviews and we ask them, what kind of success have you had going back to Wichita, Des Moines, going back to Frankfurt, Germany, going back to Honolulu, going back to whatever city you're from. And then these guys are like, yo, Immersion was so hard and it was so full of stimulus that when I got back home, it was a joke. It was super easy. If you can bench press 300 pounds, you can bench press 200 pounds. And so when they would go back home, it was just a joke for them. They had no more approach anxiety. They understood how to build these networks and connections. They understood that they really had no competition, and they grasped these concepts. And then because of that, they had tremendous success.
Yeah, from everything I've heard, that immersion program really takes a blowtorch to any social anxiety you might have.
Yeah. I mean, we because what we do is, okay, I shouldn't be giving this secret away. The first night you're there,
well, then don't feel like you have to.
The first night you're there, I'll just tell you. The first night you're there,
yes, you mean the internet.
You're supposed to only approach women you're not attracted to. That's the first night. And then you're supposed to even get rejected, completely get over your approach anxiety. They only want you to approach women you're not attracted to. That's the first night that you're there. And then just be nice, not hit on them or whatever, but just get over your approach anxiety. That was one of the great parts. And the other thing is we tell you need to fail horribly at least 50 times. And by the way, so guys will come in there and they'll just be already kind of, a little bit calibrated, and they'll come into the environment and they'll immediately have a good interaction with a woman, and we'll be like, no, that doesn't count. I need you to screw up 50 times. I need you to do it wrong 50 times so that you can learn from your mistakes. And so that's one of the things that we try to teach in the program is we try to immerse you in this environment with its high levels of stimulus, and you are not reactive to failure.
And I'll let you keep saying speed of implementation, suspension of disbelief, because the speed just allows you to just do and do and do and fail and fail and fail and get the data that you need
regardless
to learn
of what
and get
you
better.
think. Regardless of what you think about Las Vegas or the quality of women here or the nightlife or whatever, or the seediness or whatever, there's no city in America where you can be exposed to more attractive women in a shorter amount of time than Las Vegas, period. Unless you're going to Medellin, Colombia, to some bordello, it's Las Vegas, Nevada. It's not Miami. If you go to Miami Brickell, the girls that you want to see, they are on a boat that you can't get on. If you want to go to Los Angeles, they're at a mansion party you can't get into. They're at a movie premiere you can't get into, okay? If you want to go to New York, they're in a penthouse party that you can't get into, and all those different places. If you want to go to Scottsdale or Austin or Nashville, there's a lot of women that walk around outside, but it's not the prettiest girls. If you want access to the most attractive women that you can talk to in the shortest amount of time with the least amount of work, the ultimate practice ground on planet Earth is Las Vegas, Nevada.
Definitely good reason to get out there. But one thing I guess I wanted to just check with you very quickly, again, talking about what you were saying about bringing people to you who believed in your program, it seems that and I hadn't even really thought of this myself, the best way to meet the people who are going to help you get where you want to go is to just go 100% on what you believe in. Would that sound about right to you?
Sort of, but you also have to take feedback from your audience. Like if it was up to me, I'd be coaching you guys on it would be leadership training. I'd be talking about astrophysics. I'd be talking about the economy, all this kind of stuff. But that's not what you guys want. For the most part, you guys look at my lifestyle and you're like, I want women who look like that. So while I enjoy talking about that, that is especially for when a guy first joins the course, that's the main thing they want to learn. So I do agree it needs to be things that you're passionate about. But if you want to become extremely successful or extremely viral, you have to really, really, really listen to what your audience tells you. A lot of times, by the way, to the point where a lot of people on social media, they pander to their audience and say things that aren't true. Like any person who's popular on TikTok who gives advice on dating is almost entirely giving you terrible advice. It just almost with no exception. If you gave good dating advice on TikTok, you would be banned because it would come off as toxic. Good dating advice does come off as, not always, but a lot of times will come off as toxic. It just is. That's why it's good dating advice. People would not be so offended by it except for the fact that it works. That's why they're so offended. If you're sitting there and you're with a girl and you're next to her and you guys make out once and then you make out a second time and then she's like, hey, I just don't want to go any further. If you respectfully call her an Uber and send her home, girls will be like, that's toxic. You're manipulating her. And I'm like, the reason why you're upset is because you know it would work. Not all the time, but it would work some of the time. People are like, that's horrible. You shouldn't do that. Or if you're a guy who shows that you have a lot of other girls around you that approve of you through pre-selection, nothing lascivious, but like photos where you have you're walking around, there's a bunch of girls following you, guys are going to the escape room, or you're going to the axe throwing thing, you guys walking into the nightclub, or you're on stage somewhere or something like that, and you show that content, women are going to be like, that's toxic, it's manipulative. But the problem is the reason why they're complaining is because it works. And so that's the issue. Actual, true concepts that work, that are provable, that work. make choice copying, when they're put into action, they come off in ways that TikTok will, and I specifically mean TikTok because it's the most woke of all the social media platforms. It's going to be pushed in a way to where it's going to seem toxic on those platforms, and it's going to be ratioed.
Indeed. Now, I know the answer to this question, and you've probably said it a fair few times online, but just in case someone comes across this podcast going, who's this Michael Sartain guy? What is your vision for your future?
My future is, so we have 4,400 clients right now. I'd like to get to about 20,000. That would be the first thing. I would like to have a couple of other in-depth programs. We have a secondary program for Immersion that I'm not going to talk about publicly, but I want to grow that specifically. And then additionally, I want a mid-tier offer that I can get out to where I can really help a lot of guys who are in Brazil and India who are big fans, but they just can't afford my program. I want to help them as well. We already have a $27 product for some of those guys, but like I want a little bit more in-depth product for some of them. And then eventually, probably 2 or 3 years from now, pivot into how we took from this company, Men of Action, from zero to where we are now, where, I'm not going to say how much money we make a year, but it's a lot in revenue. And I want to teach other people how to build an info product the way we did. That's what I'd probably see in the future.
So it sounds like you're one of those lucky people who has really found what he wants to be doing for the rest of his life.
Well yes, for talking for a living, yeah, that is what I want to do for the rest of my life. But the thing is for me is that's not what's rewarding. What's rewarding is, I don't know if you're when guys come on the call like a Mitt or Chris or Anthony, or they come on the call, or Raj, you know what I'm talking about, and they talk about the wins they have, the successes that they have, the depression they got over, the ex that they got over. With that to me is so rewarding. Like for me, like going out and chasing women is not rewarding, but having a guy who hasn't been on a date in 10 years just have a date and knock it out of the park and crush it with women is so incredibly rewarding to me emotionally that's what I live for now. More than the money. I know some people don't believe me, but it is. Like dude, when Amit told us what he told, I'm not going to say, we all got up and started clapping. We were so fucking happy for him. And so you have situations like where there's guys in my program who aren't even 5 feet tall. They're 4'11", and they're dating like a girl that they really, really, really like being around. Guys who are just very, very cynical and find a woman that they actually want to marry. It's incredible. And stuff like that makes me super, super happy. And then also the private conversations that are not on the group calls where guys are like, hey man, I thought about hurting myself. Hey man, I thought about taking my own life. And now I have this brotherhood of men where I don't feel like doing that anymore.
Thank you. As a person who joined up for that I'm glad I've found that support structure myself. It is helping. I think, I still feel like I'm very much at the beginning, even after 5 months in, and it's going to take a while longer, and just sticking with it. And Rob, I hate to say grinding it out, but in some ways just grinding it out. But
Rob, you took action and you started a podcast. That's do you understand that already puts you in like the top 1%? Just so like the fact that you took the action to like set up your headphones, your lighting, your microphone, and you went and got a Riverside subscription. Riverside's awesome, by the way, although StreamYard has some new additions where they can stream in 4K now. Like that's awesome, bro. That you're taking these steps. I would recommend for guys out there, man on the street videos. I'd recommend trying to do red carpet interviews. These are things where you can film yourself. I don't recommend hidden camera. Stay away from hidden camera. Hidden camera is going to get you in trouble. What I recommend is guys walk around and do interviews with people, strangers, ask them provocative questions that are not sexual or like offensive, and then get better at speaking, get better with your body language, get better with your tonality, have other people critique the way, just like an acting coach would critique an actor. When I see guys communicating with women, I see a lot of times when they're afraid, they become very feminine, they become very childlike and feminine with their body language, their voice inflection goes up a couple of octaves. These are things I want to try to avoid. And so that's what I try to teach in the course. So you taking the initiative to start a podcast it's just incredible.
Thank you very much. Now, and you probably know the statistics better than I do at the moment. What's the number of episodes that most podcasts tend to fall off after? Is it 8, 10?
10. Yeah, 10. It's 8 to 10, somewhere around there. Yeah.
All right.
If you make it to 100, I think you're in the top 0.01%. I think I'm at 155 right now, but you're very, very rare to get to 100. Yeah.
First podcast I ever did back in the day made it to a nice number of 123. So if I can make it to that for this one, then yep, I will be pretty stoked. Now Now, before we do go, I did put the call out for some questions from potential audience members, and I did have one come in from, am I reading this right? Ashkan Beheshti. Sorry, not Bahashtag. Ashkan.
No, here we go.
Try and call him Bahashtag just for the fun of it. He said to ask Michael, why does Michael never play defense?
Oh my God, it's so ridiculous. He can't score on me. He has to set a screen so that he can get some. So if you join Men of Action and you come to Immersion, here's the thing. You need to bring your basketball shoes because we're going to play some brutal fucking basketball. And yes, most guys in the program, this last time we did it, none of the guys, of the 20 guys that we had that came to Immersion, none of them played basketball. And it was the most fun. They had a great time. They got great exercise. They started fighting for rebounds. It was the first time they had physical activity where they were fighting with another person, not in a violent way, but just in a competitive way. They started to understand that men competing with other men is okay. It's good. It gets the blood pumping. It creates testosterone. Not doing it in a toxic, hateful, violent way, but just in a way where it's like, hey, that's mine and I'm going to take it and I'm not going to ask permission for it. Getting into that place where you're spatially aware, you have balance, you know how to pass because of the space, and then you have tenacity on defense where you want to hustle even when it hurts, even when you're tired. Doing that for Immersion was incredible. It was one of the coolest things ever. In 2 days, we got another basketball seminar, which I'm pretty excited about. We're doing basketball on Tuesdays on Immersion. Guys will come and they'll be wearing Yeezys, or they'll be wearing what Doc Martens, or not Doc Martens, what are they called? Chuck Taylors. Don't do that. Buy basketball shoes if you come. By the way, basketball shoes just look cooler. Buy them anyway. Buy some cool basketball shoes, and then when you come to Immersion, and if you do so, I promise you, you'll have a terrific time. But playing basketball is my favorite part. It's one of my favorite parts.
I did have some shoes.
And the idea that Ashkan could guard me is fucking laughable. There's no way. Ashkan has this like one-step pull-up where like he can't even see the basket, and he pulls up, and sometimes it goes in. That's it. He's like he's a one-hit wonder, bro. He's like the Milli Vanilli of like offense. Like he's just got this one play he runs. That's it.
I'm pestering him already, but I'm going to have to get him on the show just to do a rebuttal. That's going to be fun. Yeah. All right. So, where can people go to find out more about Michael Sartain and the Men of Action program?
Just look up Michael Sartain. It's 14 letters. Last name is Sartain. If you cannot find me on every single platform, that just means you're not good with words. It's pretty easy. I will tell you, I have lost a TikTok and I have lost a Twitter. So it's Sartain Podcast on Twitter and it's Michael Sartain Podcast on TikTok, because I lost one for doing nothing, basically. Just because my content is like when you offer up peer-reviewed studies that show the innate sex differences between men and women, these social media platforms really don't like that. The other thing I will tell you is just kind of as a warning, my podcast, do not play it at work. Don't try to fight these battles for me. Don't play my podcast out loud while you're at work, where your other employees, your coworkers can hear it. Don't do it. This is not safe for work content. We're talking about real shit. Although I do take all the profanity out of my podcast, we're talking about real stuff here. It's going to get you in trouble. Don't die on this hill. Let me and Rolo, let me and Sterling Cooper and Justin Waller, let me and all of us, let us die on that hill. Mystery and Owen and all, let us down that hill. You guys don't need to down that hill. But the information you get, you should get the right information. It's really important that you guys do that. And by the way, if we're wrong, we'll debate you. And if we're wrong, there should be studies and data that prove that we're wrong, and there really isn't.
Indeed. But look, I'm hardcore. I listen to you at work all the time, even though the only person who can hear me is my four-legged morale assistant who's here at the office in me at the moment. But nice. All right, Michael, it has been a pleasure chatting with you. Thank you very much for your time and coming on Steel Success.
Okay, man. Thank you so much, brother. I can't wait to see this.
Get it out. I'm aiming for a 5-episode launch, and this is going to be one of them. So probably in a month or so.
Nice. Love it.